Hello all, welcome back to Be a Creative. In today's video I am making two tags. One was purposeful, the other one happened by accident. I needed to make a tag for my brother's birthday, which was 2 days ago, and it's going in the mail today. It's okay, I'm not ruining anything, he doesn't watch my channel. But I wanted to make him a tag that was done in kind of like a graffiti style. We both really enjoy that type of art. He's super big into anime and really cool stuff like that, so I thought he would appreciate that. I start by taking some big old dollops of gel medium and I'm putting them down on a piece of deli paper because I'm going to use that as a palette and I don't want that all over my tonic media mat. I'm getting really tired of cleaning that thing, like for real. So I'm using Dina Wakley Heavy Body Acrylics, and because her acrylics are technically a matte, I want them glossy, and we as of yet do not have a set of her paints in a gloss, so that's why I'm mixing it with the gel medium, which ironically is what the gel medium is actually for. I used a heavy body gloss gel medium, and it does two things. It adds gloss and sheen to the acrylic paint, and it also kind of thins it out just a little bit, so even though it looks like I have way too much, and I do. That's why I originally was only going to make one tag, but then I realized I have too much paint, so I'm going to just go ahead and do it in three. But by thinning it out, it makes it a little bit easier to spread, which is what I'm doing here with my finger. I am randomly taking globs of that paint, and I'm just basically laying it down over the tag. I don't have a plan for this. I'm wanting to make a really colorful and kind of a graffiti style background. And I think that, like, if you look at graffiti, especially really well done graffiti, which yes, I know is technically vandalism, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do that, disclaimer, but if you look at really well done graffiti, the backgrounds are always super colorful, and I just love the look, especially when you contrast with the black. If you also notice the color palette that I'm using, it's mostly reds and blues with that little touch of lime green and that yellow thrown in. Because I'm basically working in the same color palette, I'm not worried about making mud because I'm certainly not waiting for this paint to dry. I'll talk about more on that in a minute. But because I didn't want to have to wait for the paint to dry between layers, I know that as long as I'm staying with reds and blues, they're going to mix and make purples and things like that. If I'm laying the yellow down on top of the red, then when they mix, they're going to make a little bit of orange. You can see I also have another shade of orange, and check the description box below for a full list of supplies, so that way I can build on top of each other without making mud. That green color, however, which is her lime, that was really the last color that I put on because that will make mud. Just a heads up, and ask me how I know that. Speaking of not waiting for things to dry, it took a full 24 hours for all of that paint to dry in my craft room. So this is actually the next day because that's good and dry, and now I'm working on my focal point for my brother's tag. I am using a Tim Holtz, I think it's called the Hipster stamp set. I think it's hysterical. Last year I did another hipster tag for him over a wood grain background, so this year I picked a different character. I've stamped it 3 times, and I'm using the corresponding die set to cut out the tie, and it's hard to tell right here, but I also cut out his beak in a separate little piece because I'm planning on, well, you know what? You'll see. Just hang out to the end of the video when I put everything together. So now I have my 3 tags, and okay, I wish I could be really honest and say that I had plans and knew exactly what I was doing. I did not. I wasn't sure that this technique was going to work like how I wanted, so I just decided, since I had done 3 tags with all of that excess paint, I would have 2 spares, basically. And what I'm doing is adding black gesso. Whenever I want a really dark black over something, I always use black gesso rather than black paint, because here it is, you can see it's a little glossy. The coverage is completely amazing, and it doesn't give that matte ashy look when it's dry. I'm randomly putting down the black gesso over the tag, and then I'm taking some of the same colors that I used earlier to make the background, and I'm just kind of smearing it right over the top, just so that it's not like completely black. Like, I want it broken up a little bit. For the last tag though, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna experiment. I have some heavy body white gesso. This stuff is amazing. It's like frosting. It's not though. Trust me on that, it's not. But it feels like frosting on your finger. It's so thick, and the coverage is absolutely wonderful. So now that those are dry, I decided that I want something kind of crazy. I need to make that graffiti style background. So I have some new stencils that I was really looking forward to taking for a test run. These are the Crafters Workshop stencils. And I just think that they're so adorable. And you guys know that I don't like doodling, so anything that will doodle for me, I am all about. However, y'all, my stenciling game is weak. I don't know what is going on. I left this part in because I think that this, again, it's important to show how to fix mistakes. And we do that by just covering it right back up with black gesso and then adding a little bit more magenta over top. I had another Crafters Workshop stencil that I got, and I was so hoping that this was going to be awesome. I was right, it was. And I wanted to use it on the gel plate real quick. So I'm using black gesso over the stencil. And because I said I had 3 tags to work with, I'm kind of just randomly playing, and I'm going to see which one comes out the best. I haven't really picked yet. This, however, is how that accidental tag gets made, because I used the stencil and boom, that happened. I was like, oh, this stencil is awesome. This is going to look amazing when I pull this print. Well, maybe if I'm using the term amazing loosely, I don't know. I don't think I had enough paint down, or in all honesty, that paint that was on the tag probably wasn't completely dry. I played around with another stencil that I had gotten, and it was a script stencil. And so this is how I know that my stenciling game is weak. And if anyone has any suggestions, I usually get better results when I stencil right over the gel plate and can pull them that way, but that's not always convenient. So I would love to hear how you guys stencil, and maybe I will try that out. I love script stencils. I think they're absolutely beautiful when you get really, really good results. This was messy, and it looks like a hot mess. I know, but just hang in there, because that hot mess is actually going to wind up being the one that we use to create the background for his tag. So I went back to the other tag because, again, at this point, Pat Shannon doesn't know which one she's going to use. And really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick the one that I like the most. That was the total criteria for which tag was going to be his background. The one that was the least crap. So they're just crazy. Like, they look like all of my art supplies basically vomited all over it. But the more layers that I start adding, though be it they are being added poorly through the stencil, the better the tag starts to look. I am making sure, other than the addition of that purple, which I don't really know where that came from. I was just like, man, this really needs some purple. I am trying to stick with the same colors that I used in the backgrounds originally. So that's the same red that I used when I was mixing with the gel medium. That's the same turquoise. I think that's a Liquitex Basic turquoise that I used when I mixed in the gel medium and made the background. And as you can see, it's by adding more layers that is what really kind of starts to fix this tag. Though I do have an incredibly messy bit right there that I'm trying to cover up with the stencil. And I'm marginally successful, but eventually I'm going to get that worked out. So I'm going back to that other tag because, again, they're both just really bad. And I can't decide which one I'm going to use. So I've just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep working on both. I'm going back in and I'm adding that same color through that same stencil. And I'm still not crazy about the results. And I decided that I need to push back some of this mess. And I think in Tuesday's video, I mentioned that if you have a gel print or something that's gotten away from you, you can totally push it back with white paint. You can do the same thing with any type of neutral. I don't know if I was particularly clear about that. So I added a little bit more black to cover up just some of those really muddy, I don't know what to call them. There was just so much happening right over top. And now I'm trying to correct it even more. I had some deli paper that I stamped with Stays on ink using the Tim Holtz Faded Type stamp, let it dry, tore it up, and made it in little collage pieces. I'm hoping that really solid print is also going to help kind of tone back this whole graffiti mess that I have going on. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I decided to do something with that third tag. It was so colorful, I didn't want to add anything to it, so I just took a random stamp that I had on my desk, and I'm stamping over top of it. I'm going to cut it out. Be sure to cut out her little armpit, And that gel print through that stencil was so awesome. I was like, you know what? This is really all this needs. The color was great. And you can see me sliding it away because I had to resist the urge to add anything to it. Now that that tag is good and dry, I'm going back in with some gel medium and I'm going to add that little other piece of collage that I had ripped up. And boom, this is when I know that this tag is the one that I'm going to use, because adding that little piece of collage is what made all the difference. I have some homemade washi tape that has been popping up in quite a bit of my videos lately. I'm just randomly adding that to both of the tags, just to add in just a little bit more texture, because clearly there is not enough going on in these tags. I mean, they're kind of boring, right? I wanted a little bit more black in, and even though I had added in that white strip of washi that looks like it has script on it, I actually wind up taking that off here in a little bit, because when I add the focal point to that tag, I realized that it added just a little bit too much white. Okay. So for the focal point for my brother's birthday tag, I left the entire background of the stamp white, because any type of color that I added to that was just going to be too much. And it's that stark white against that messy background, which is what makes this tag work. The only color that was added into the stamp was on his cute little tie, and that was when I cut that die out, it was just cut out from a stamped over image that I had made with some Dina Wakley gloss sprays. And the little bit of yellow on his tie and the little bit of yellow that I colored in with an alcohol marker on his beak is really what ties the whole thing together, especially since you can see that tiny little bit of yellow in the background. I love this. I love how this worked. I don't know. I think it's fantastic. It's incredibly messy. I think it looks like graffiti, and I think my brother's really going to like it. Though fiddling with his little beak and tie on those foam adhesives was kind of tedious. So now I have added my two sentiments. They're both from that hipster stamp set, Legit and Epic, because my brother is super epic. I love both of these tags. I think that, I don't know, through all of the crap that it took to get to this point, I think that they look fantastic. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, guys, thank you so much, and I will see you next time.